So I was very fortunate to study guys who could really draw. And I picked up a lot of Bernie Wrightson's tricks. The way you do a shadow under a nose and stuff like that. And that stuff worked fine for a little while, and I realized, I don't know what that means. That weird little triangular shadow. What's that supposed to be? So eventually I had to learn how to draw a nose. And then go, oh, that's what that triangle means. Unfortunately, it's always one of those things, comics, people want to get in comics. One of those things nobody ever wants to hear is, you just kind of have to learn how to draw this stuff. Because John Byrne used to say, what they want to hear is, you get up in the morning and you put your left foot in the bucket, and then you'll be able to do it. Unfortunately, I've never found that to be the case. Not that I tried, and you're free to try it at home, but no, I think it's usually more than that. And again, I can't emphasize strong enough being influenced by different people, looking at different people. One of the sad things I see, it shows, is guys at 17 years old who have decided, here's my style. Dude, you haven't figured out how to draw yet. And so your style is largely based on saying, I never want to learn how to draw that. So therefore, my style doesn't have that. Or my style solves that this way. And I can draw feet. And I've drawn feet before. But stylistically, my style doesn't usually allow for feet to be drawn. And there's a real reason for that. If you look at the kind of painters that I'm really into, one of the things that makes those figures really strong is you root the figure to the ground with shadow. The biggest nightmare for me in comics, one thing I could never do, was draw a guy's feet and have him standing on the floor. He always looked like he was floating. So you add a shadow. But the idea of drawing a guy's feet, the shadows springing out of it, never really worked for me. So little by little you go, well, the guy's leg is a shadow, especially the leg is back, that's a shadow. And then, that grows into this shadow, and it really roots this guy to the ground. Now, if he's jumping through the air, either you got to put him on a boulder, which, is pretty weak, or you draw his feet. So I have drawn his feet. There's actually a Wolverine comic I did a few years ago, 20 years ago. But it was so Wolverine takes his boot off and he uses a lighter to burn the ropes that are tying him. So I figure I had to do that. Took a lot of Polaroids of my own feet, and I don't think I ever have to draw feet because I proved that I actually could.
There seems to be a flow in the lines and the relationship to each other. Is that unconscious?
No, probably not. Well, yeah, you're right. It is probably unconscious. You mean like this kind of stuff that I'm doing right now?
Yeah, just how lines are at an angle to each other and how it creates this flow.
Yeah, well, I'm not just scrubbing around. I mean, it is a little bit like a painter thing. I'm kind of I think because these background shapes, as you'll see when blacks go in, are going one way. There's a whole kind of a lead to this picture. I also, being right-handed, I always tend to draw from bottom left to upper right. So, 90% of the covers you see that I've done in the last few years, there's smoke that starts here and goes over here, or a black cloud that starts down here and goes over there. And boy, if I try to reverse it, by the time I get that drawing done, I go, somehow I managed to get the whole thing going on.
You got a question? You got a question?
Any artists draw
yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of different approaches to it. I mean, I just did this book with Richard Corbin last year, and he doesn't draw like me. He's more detailed than I am. But there's some magic thing he does that made that book scary. And I got to say, in some cases, when I saw the pages come in black and white, I was like, oh, that's kind of working. But then when that thing was colored, and it's not just because of how it was colored, it it was stuff that Richard did. It's the scariest looking Hellway comic ever. So I think, well, I guess I can't say every style is appropriate for horror, but certainly, you know, it's how you use it, and, you know, how you know, it's knowing how to use those tools.
Talking of tools, I'm noticing that you're moving into the black spotting phase, and this is really where the atmosphere that we talked about in the panel description comes out. Describe for me what's going on right now.
This is the art, in this case, the art of making it look like something there that really isn't. So you have some black shapes, and you have, you know, some white shapes. If it was a story, there'd probably, you know, be some justification for what the stuff is. But what we're going to get into, right now the Hellway figure is separate, not just because of it's done with one pen, the background's done with the other. But this is where you start going, okay, we're losing this arm. And most of this collar is going to kind of blend along with that arm. But what I want in this case is Hellway's head to pop out real clean. So we've got his head against this white highlighted, this kind of broken stone column. But this hand, we want to root it into that solid black. Black's need to be darker here. And it's that stage, I mean, Wally Wood used to say, when you think you've spotted enough black, go back and spot 10% more. It's just such a powerful tool. When you do a white space, you know, I mean, if you're doing mist or something, it's nice and it's kind of mysterious. But in most cases, you do these big, clean, open areas, and you go, oh, that's nice. There's nothing here. I love Steve Rude. But so many of his, I did mention next one, which was hideous. But so many of Steve's backgrounds were a lamp and a floating chair. And you go, oh yeah, that's that little room with a floating chair. Because it was so open for color, you never got the sense of what that room was. But if you do a room with as few details as Steve did, and you spot black in that room, and you throw a couple of things that look like shadows, you know, zigzagging through that room, and highlight a couple of things that you don't even know what they are, sticking out of that shadow, then you go, oh, this is a cool room. I don't really know what's in it, but there must be something in that corner, there must be something in this corner, and that, I think, is super important.
Do you have a